each other like competitors. We need manufacturers not seeing like the person who is now coming in from Ghana into Kenya is coming to take it. They need to be looking like, oh, guess what? This person is going to better my product. The retailers, we are just about that going now and expanding into other horizons.
Imagine all these networks talking to each other. Now, imagine the AfCFTA Hub. Keep your eye on the tapestry of brands connected to markets through the power of artistry and retail interconnectivity. Imagine the brands of startups and SMEs connected with new markets across the continent through the digital power of the AfCFTA Hub and the logistics and retail being assembled. Our eyes are on Africa's unstoppable rise in the 21st century. Our eyes are on Agenda 2063. Our eyes are on AfCFTA. Keep your eyes on the AfCFTA Hub.
It's our hustle. We not go break again for our own land. We are raising our continent.
Thank you very much. And standing on the foundational, share the slides for the presentation. What I would like to do, now that you've seen what the hub represents in terms of stakeholders, agent, to create this model, make it easy for trading to happen, I also want to show how we've progressed to start working within countries to bring together the ecosystem of intergovernmental bodies, governmental institutions, private sector, civil society, DFIs, co-owning, co-creating this hub that is so essential for driving CFTA. So I want to lay out start by laying some real fundamental systems. Would everyone agree with me? A continent that does not have roads connecting us, rail connecting us, ports connecting us, the only possible way of integrating 1.2 billion people on this continent has to be digital. I mean, I can't see any other way that would happen in the immediate future. If that belief system is right, then I would think that because every country has some digital tools, and 70% or 80% of our population, 70% of our population are youth who see the world through technology and digitalization anyway, and most of their lifestyle now is impacted by digital. Amazon, they're doing all manner of things across selling, trading, across WhatsApp groups, then that's probably one of the easiest and quickest way in which we can begin to move CFTA or AfCFTA from thought to reality and begin to contextualize it. We also want CFTA to remain a great treaty. We want ownership amongst the individuals and people who own 80% of economic activity on the continent. That's startups. So that brings the point closer home. What is the AfCFTA logic? The AfCFTA logic basically situates key stakeholders that no matter what we say about AfCFTA, if we don't have them, the enablers and the implementers working hand in hand, it will remain a trade treaty. That's the greatest investment opportunity. So, of course, there are the enablers who basically create the market. They are the likes of our industrial development corporations. We're happy to see we have the chairperson of IDC here. They are also the power generators, because we can't even start talking about production and industrialization without energy. And I think I was talking about load shedding earlier. We can also be going to industrialization, because what are we trading if we are not producing? But then what about the workforce we need? Where are the artisans? Where are the engineers? Where are the inspectors? All of these things need to be programmatized and understood and sequenced. And then where are the markets? I mean, where are the hubs? And how are they talking to each other? Because what we'll end up creating, if we're not careful, is fragments and silos of communities doing the same thing, and yet our markets continue to get dominated by producers from outside the AfCFTA region. When an SME in India wakes up and is producing, he thinks African market. When an SME in China wakes up and is producing, he thinks Africa market. But the Uganda SME does not think Dakar market. He just can't even contextualize it. There are all manner of barriers. Some are language, some are all manner of things. They don't even know whether to trust the person on the other end that they're dealing with. And then there are all these regulatory barriers as well. And so, once we're clear of what will make within the ecosystem important, now crystallize the implementation in 3 focus areas. First, it has to be an after of the people, inclusion, very key. Else, we lose. 2, innovation. We can't do business as usual. It can't just be the same old. I always say one thing that Africans are good at is fragmenting, circumventing, and not dating. There's just so much, there's nothing new that we need to create anymore. It exists. The real innovation is how we're going to get us to work together. That's innovation. How do we really, really get us working together for once? And that brings me to breaking silos and getting Africa working together for real. But the silos start really from the top. There's no way we're going to integrate a continent of 55 countries when our governments are not integrated, or when ministry departments and agencies are not integrated, and when private sector, everybody's building his own thing, and they're not integrated. So there's some kind of sequencing and coordination that needs to happen. And we're happy to have among the stakeholders in the room today some of the leaders at the vanguard of some of these conversations. I'm happy to see the GCPA because a lot of this has been inspired by vision. I'm also happy to see my sister Nados here as well, because she has the immense task of coordinating the development agenda of the continent throughout our NEPAD, and of course our premier and leading financial DFI on the continent is here as well. Good to see my brother Acha as well, who is a lot of these things that we've managed to put together, we may have borrowed from some of his research work and consulting work. But moving now to the next slide, where we're moving from those 3-pronged strategies. Now, I mean, those 3-pronged ideas, now we need to move into the strategy. So for we have to acknowledge that there's a lot of, we don't need to build any new. Our fintechs, startups, they're doing these things already. Innovation is how do you bring them together, where they continue to own what they're doing, but they're able to leverage the network to create scale. And that's what made us create the Caravan. The Caravan is actually an acronym, by the way. It's a Continental Advancement and Rebirth through Value Chain Accelerators and Networks. Also, it's inspired by the camels and caravans that traversed the Trans-Sahara during the times of Mansa Musa during the trade. In Africa, we just moved around very freely. We tied our wagons into one caravan and traded together. Today, our wagons, our innovations, our ideas, our skills, and we need to be able to bring them together. The second is the hub, which is what we are really discussing today, which is the most advanced of what of the CFTA program, and that has to do more with it. So the caravan has to do with the SMEs. The hub has to do with governance. So with our technical support has developed, we're able to now connect single window systems across the continent of customs, because what the SME wants to do is not understand what treaty or whatever. They just want to know, how will I get my product to another market? And if we can remove as much of that barrier out of the way by getting regulators to talk to each other, it makes their life easier. The problem is that most of these regulators are powered by institutions that are commercial, and that would not want to compete with each other in each other's markets. And that's fragmentation. So through this hub, we're managing to now get a little more. And then, of course, there's PROPER. PROPER is also an acronym for Proof of Origin, Platform for Electronic Registration, which, with the help of ADA NEPAD, which is medicines and drugs harmonization protocol around the continent in terms of its regulation harmonization, we're now building tools that can make these medicines talk together. When people talk about AfCFTA, it's all about trade. 80% of everything that is happening under AfCFTA actually falls outside of trade. I mean, if you talk about, I just talked about medicines. That doesn't fall under ministries and departments of trade. They fall payments fall under the banking. All of these things fall under regulators that if we don't incorporate into this scheme, you end up with your goods at the border, and FDA is going to say, well, I don't know, it's not safe. So all of these things now have to. What have we done so far? We started with a partner, 10,000 SME. Knew nothing about another market. We ran hackathons and other things. They came on board. And over the last 3 years, we've been monitoring and working with them to move their product from one country to homes and shelves in countries across the continent. And whilst walking the journey with them, identifying all the pain points they go through and all the people they need. They can follow their money, they can trust the process, and they can really, really integrate and trade across borders. I'll move on to, there are also logistic operators that we've engaged. You saw in the earlier video where the likes of Rwanda Air, Ethiopian Airlines, among others, have already integrated. And also a trade facilitation platform that is enabling the financial institutions to be able to follow the work of the SMEs and follow the value chains that they get their products. Pretty much, and then now along comes the guided trade initiative, where we're now focusing on, under the auspices of the CFTA Secretariat, identifying countries, the coalition of the ready and the willing, who are ready to begin to open their market trade. And the countries that we're currently focused on are those countries within the guided trade initiative for this pilot. The AfCFTA Hub has no business trying to get in the middle of what the private sector. What it's offering is a mechanism that will create interoperability, interconnectivity, to ensure that one of the things, if you want to fail in Africa, try to create something that you won't. Everybody will come after you. What you want to do is to empower, unlike the rest of the world where they're more monolithic in their way. In Africa, if you come up with something from Ghana, Togo doesn't want you because he has his own thing. Nigeria is also going to build his own thing. So what we must do is to create something that allows still a whole without losing. And that's, and there are many global examples of that with the open network for digital commerce that India has built. The next low hanging have goods and service products across, in fact, most of them have shops in about 10, 19 countries. They're probably the quickest enablers of taking again is regulatory. And so being able to bring regulatory institutions onto the platform is creating this seamless mechanism by which they're able to move the goods across the continent. I'm just going to breeze through quickly. These are some of the SMEs I talked about. And then there's fraud, right, that we have to pay attention to. I mean, if you're going to do anything digital, you must be sure who you're dealing with. You know, you want to be, because that's one thing that can blow this whole thing. If people have to send goods to another market, they've never met the person before, and then now the money gets missing, the goods never gets delivered, all of that, the logistics operator. So the kind of KYC systems, the verification mechanisms, the cybersecurity protocols, these are all things that within countries on the continent and institutions are vested with those skills. And we've had to engage the telcos, all of whom have the bills that we call. So what are the key components of the app? It's a super app. Interfaces for Arabna, who is producing clothes across the continent, but I want to buy clothes from Arabna. I want to know that she really exists. Because now we've linked her mobile network that because she has a profile, with her after number that she generates, that becomes a digital ID. We're able to go into her profile. It becomes a LinkedIn profile. We know who she banks with. We can verify that. There's a mechanism within the app that allows you association she belongs to, if it's the Ghana Association of Industries or SAFRA or whatever, and they will verify before you even move to the next step. If they don't get that verification, you cannot move to the next step. okay? We know which banks it banks with. And all of those things have been thought through to ensure that, and she cannot log in as a regulator in that sense. You know, only regulators can log in as regulators, only traders can log in as traders, and governments can log in as governments. And so that's the kind of interfaces that we built into this directive. There's the after number that just generated. You can verify that at an admin level. You set your own privacy protocols, which you have to keep changing and updating. We've also now connecting blacklists of telcos in various countries because it's blacklisted, and now all of a sudden it's linked to his digital ID, which is linked to his bank, which is linked to enter system digital ID, be able to realize that oh, this person has been. So it's difficult for him to be able to try to do business in another country. In pilot, a lot of work has gone on. Management, there's the blacklist intelligence that I talked about, marketplace will take place. Talk to each other digitally. And then of course there's e-logistics. For AfCFTA market to be successful, there has to be a single transaction traceability protocol. There's a common framework for that and basic model for different platform operators to collaborate. Again, that for any of these things to work, we have to perfect it at the country level first. It's just not going to work ad hocly, and it's not just going to happen by itself. So we started with 3 countries, Kenya, Rwanda, this is Zambia, and we're now working on DRC. In Ghana, we just finished completing the entire, connecting all the regulators into the AfCFTA Hub. So Postal Courier Services Regulatory Commission, which means that you could actually sit at your home and have a courier person pick up your product, take it all the way to DHL or Ethiopian Airlines, and it will be moved. And just a single common number, it's able to verify your food and drug ID, verifies your customs, your certificate of origin and everything, and actually go anywhere, and your product can move into another country. When we are done with the integrations in the other countries, we'll be able to pilot real digital trading happening among those 4 countries, and beyond that, we can take it to multiple countries. I see Sophie giving me a wink, so tipping me a wink. So I'm going to stop there. I get carried away when I'm talking about this, but I'm very excited about it. And thank you very much. And during question times, I'm happy to also come back.
Thank you, Adam. Some excellent work that has gone through into the hub. And I think I'm really excited at the fact that we've got a lot of private sector players here today. We cannot realize the FCT hub without private sector. And I think we can also learn from partners. And so I'm going to go first with our brother Sol. I'm not sure if people know, but the AFDB has been doing a lot of work in industrialization with SMMEs, doing a lot with governments around regulatory frameworks. So I guess as a short, I just wanted to shed a bit of light around that work. And in the second round, I'll come back after I've invited all the speakers, and we're going to have an action plan that comes out of the ADB. So if you can please shed light on that.
I hope you can hear me. Okay, is it down, or maybe I move around a little?
As comfortable as you want to.
So the African Development Bank is seeking really to support industrialization in Africa. Why? It's really about creating jobs. If we focus on just the big ones and we don't look at the SMEs in their value chains, then we've missed the opportunity to really impact the creators of about 80 to 90% of jobs. So if we're working with ShopRite, we also want to work with the SME suppliers or the SME distributors. So for us, looking at corporate value is very important. When it comes to industrialization, you heard UOFI Grant, the plenary session, say, why? So for us, when we think of industrialization, What we say is it shouldn't be import substitution to 54 countries. It should really be about where are we competitive in terms of the raw material production, which gives us a better chance at really doing value addition within our continent. So when we took a look at this as the AFDB, we said, let's focus on food processing, agro-processing, because we produce some of these, wheats and grains in Africa. So then we can do the value addition a lot more naturally. Let's focus on cotton to textiles to garments, because we have the C4, which was talked about today, anchored by Benin, okay? Then we said, what are some of the natural endowments we have in Africa? In some countries, Zimbabwe, it's about minerals. Minerals that are going to manufacture. Then we said, frog. So we need to look at the fourth industrial revolution and see how we can help. Now, these are areas in which we can be competitive and innovative. But what was one lesson that we learned from COVID? One of the key lessons we learned from COVID is when it comes to the pharmaceutical and vaccine space, we would finish up last in a crisis. So even though we're not competitive in producing what we call the active pharmaceutical ingredients, or APIs, we said we need to have a minimum security of supply for our continent, because it's better to be able to buy something at 50 cents and not be able to buy what should be available at 5 cents, right? So we need to have a minimum security of supply. So these are the 5, value chains, industrial value chains we're going to focus on. But we've got to focus on the SMEs. Estimated for SMEs in Africa is about 330 billion. So the banks, the traditional financial institutions, are not naturally working with SMEs. If I directly finance an SME as a finance house, I would only do a few SMEs. But if I can go through financial intermediaries, and nowadays it doesn't have to be a branch network, it can be a digital network, okay, then I'll act. So it's important for me to always have the conversation with financial institutions and say, what would it take? So we're challenged on SMEs. We're also challenged on women-owned SMEs. Then we're further challenged on youth entrepreneurs, SMEs. So this is why we at the AFDB came up with the AfCFTA program. I hope all of you have heard about the AfCFTA program.
Yes.
Okay. Now, the good news is we've been able to provide up to $1 billion of access to finance to women-owned businesses as of this, and we intend to do that. So lastly, talk about the innovation is going to come from the youth. If women are struggling to actually get financing from banks, how much more the youth entrepreneurs? Which collateral are they going to pledge? My house? My son is going to pledge my house? No, I'm not going to do that. Then in addition, the youth really tend to be very tech, okay? But they fail at the commercialization stage. I think you mentioned this earlier, yeah? So what we've designed, and we're going to be rolling this out across Africa, it's I can tell you it's his path. What we've done is we've looked at the life cycle of the youth entrepreneurs, and we said, constant market failure, we can have an impact. Try to play family and friends, great point. So they won't have collateral when they go to the banks. So what we're creating, really on a multi-country basis, is really an angel investment fund, a credit guarantees fund, and then also a technical assistance fund to really support the youth entrepreneurs in preparing business plans, in preparing reports, in understanding the governance around third-party money. It's not your money, you can't commingle. But we're also saying that you have to borrow, but really at a because we don't want you to wait for what we do in Africa, wait for the foundations to because the things that you need to do to actually get your businesses going. So for us, And looking at you later on, they will sell to private equity. But the YEB will constantly be with you. And for us, it's really an ecosystem youth entrepreneurship platform. And it's going to be a game changer, the same way the CFTA is going to be a game changer. Thank you.
Excellent. We can't wait to work with you on that. I mean, I hope you are taking notes. You've taken Solomon's number because you saw. You've taken Solomon's number because you saw he's looking at you, saying he's going to provide you with all the stuff. So thanks so much. NEPAD is really a big convener of business, and we keep saying it's important table CTA to be realized. But I wanted to segue from one of the points that Solomon was making earlier on about the pharmaceutical space. NEPA did quite a bit of work in the medicine trade and regulatory harmonization space. Would you speak a bit about that? And I think the next level before you get off, partnership, why was it important already to come on the table?
And good afternoon, everybody. I think my stomach is rumbling, so I thought, really great thank you to AfroChampion, really for this platform as our NEPAD, very easy. If you see the under the control of DCP anyway, but if you see the mandate of our NEPAD, the first and most important one is to coordinate all the development activities at the continental level to make sure that they are result-oriented and are focused in terms of meeting the targets of Agenda 2063. The second is really to build knowledge to the African member states, building their capacities and making sure that are aligned to the Agenda 2063. Together, we build the Africa we want, a very integrated, unified, united, economic powerhouse. Truly, if you look at the resource mobilization aspect of it, our role is really to make sure also that we have all the resources mobilized to support the member states' activities. And all this requires a platform of coordination. And this could be expanded and used to really meet our and excited development. Now, going back to what have been asked, it's important for any integration and the harmonization of rules, legal, regulatory framework is critical and very important. And we started with the AMRH, the African Medicine Regulatory and Harmonization Framework, which looked at all the regulatory frameworks in the continent and tried to harmonize that so that the pharmacy in terms of integration. And therefore, that is one aspect. But in all the other products and services that require the harmonization, that is what we are doing. And this platform will help us in disseminating the information, but also collecting information. The second very important thing when we talk about knowledge-driven advisory services is that we have to collect the knowledge. And knowledge is everywhere in Africa, but it's therefore the knowledge is not really scaled and scaled up. And if we get we can collect all the knowledge, and from that knowledge, upgrade it, and we can disseminate it. One of the things that I'll tell you, because of time, is an example. When we talk about Energize, my brother from ADB, President Adishina, said that that would be availed to the enterprises that are coming out of the Energize Africa, because Energize Africa is about the empowerment of youth. Are we going to really create that. No, there are many, many, and I've been in the private sector as a policy advisor since the 1990s, many initiatives on development and empowerment of youth, but they're all scattered. The knowledge is not scaled up again. It's not expanded. And therefore, this, again, platform would help us really collect this information and going to what I said, one of the things that is really to make this available for the youth enterprises and startups that are coming out of the Energize Africa. And Energize Africa is not just out and about, coming out, which are 1 million per year, and we are thinking of 1 billion go. All the other efforts, organizations, and all partners that are working on youth enterprise development and youth empowerment, let's get together, let's scale it up and upscale, the knowledge that we have so that, we grow, these youthful enterprises. I thank you, but so much to say.
I know.
But,
So much to say, but guess what? I don't even have to ask you in the next round as to what your comment is, because NEP had being on the table. So thanks for that. I'm going to ask Nick and Sons and like, please come up.
Thank you so much, Vi. And good morning. Oh, it's still morning. I'm checking my clock and my watch. Thank you so much, Afro Champions, for this opportunity. And congratulations on this AfCFTA hub, which is one of your bold ideas, which really transforming Africa in just but really moving. What we like about these projects is because they are now translating into life all the policy and the good political will of the leadership of the continent and the aspiration of the citizens of Africa. We need something to keep our hope high as we also diligently work to implementing and really some good products to harvest as we scale up. In few minutes, I wish to link this whole AfCFTA hub to something that the continent is looking up to, especially when it as connecting to this concerned. I wish to talk a little bit more about the initiative that we are seeking to implement, have already mobilized the so that we leverage the convening power of the African Union to, when we talk about women and youth and the intersection of those two demographics with the African citizens on the continent, when it comes to trading and production, actually that intersection, I don't know, Acha, what you can estimate, I think above 80%, by all means. So we are committed to including women. Parity across and us. African Union has committed to 35% inclusion for very in terms of but that is what it is. And we are also having this decade, 2020 to 2030, whereby we are talking of a decade for women's inclusion in finance and economic so then we are looking at both women and youth separate financial and economic inclusion because same challenges. I think, Solomon, you mentioned them. So this Wi-Fi initiative, Women and Youth, financial inclusion is civilized us in Africa. Whatever in your lane, that's why I like this concept of the hub. We are not disrupting anything. We are not even pretending to support you do what you're doing better. What we are saying is, let's come together. Let's be transparent about what we are doing. Let's be accountable on what we are doing. Let's avoid the duplications, because when it comes to financial inclusion, we needed to report on the same thing in different corners, and when you add up, the numbers add up, but in fact, they are not, because maybe we are all reporting on the same group and reporting on it at different layers. So, can we do that? Then, working group or schemes. We have one on financial inclusion, and we have one on quotas. That is also looking at quotas in employment, quotas in procurement. What the union is to create that framework for all of us to account to the African citizen. Can we all be knowing what are you getting as feedback from the ground, which needs policy action to look at, and then we advocate it among the governance, the policy organs of our member states, and then go back to implement. Create a system like that, which we are going, in the end, after 10 years of this, we have mobilized resources, $100 billion to them at the end of the decade. That is what we committed. And I see this hub as one tool, and maybe we can even similar concepts as to how we can now be documenting what is happening on the ground of all the partakers into the Wi-Fi initiative, so that we'll be reporting, we'll be meeting each year. This year we met in February, whereby we have some and other. We are all mapping. So that's the beauty of what you're doing, and I wish to congratulate you and to aspire to seeing more into the Wi-Fi, how we can maybe be connected. We monitor to African citizens, mainly women and youth in business. Thank you so much.
AfCFTA is just getting even more excited. I'm loving hearing people connecting, women and youth at the center of it all. And so much conversation happening around convening and learning around each other. And I think probably I should bring you in, Sis Busi. This is Busi Mabuza from Industrial Development Corporation. And I really want to speak about, or continue the conversation and this thread around industrialization and the work you're doing around that. But I think importantly, some of the also take around the work that the BRICS business.
I'm mic'd up, thanks, Sophie. So as the Industrial Development Corporation, we're very excited by the opportunity that such a hub presents. We can only deliver on our mandate through partners, and to have a platform that can present to us the opportunity of accessing trusted partners is very, very exciting. The Industrial Development Corporation is, of course, 100% owned by the South African government, but we operate in 17 countries. We're not there yet. We're not halfway through. Our work, our exposure is just in terms of our, we don't quite use partners in the continent. What we hear from our partners, because of our approach, we don't just provide finance, but we provide non-financial support as well. Our business partners inform us that access to information, my sister referred to knowledge, having access to knowledge, is a barrier for them. I trust that this hub is going to slow those down for all our business partners. Another area that they face, of course, is the markets. So I am very, very excited that we are now going to be able to. Have you been to the AfCFTA? Is that of finally, of course, the BRIC countries, South Africa chairs BRICS for this year, and therefore we as the BRICS Business Council are chairing the Business Council and will be hosting in South Africa in all the BRIC nations. The approach of the BRIC nations has been to come to each country individually. I hope that a hub such as this one, and able to therefore fashion access the opportunities that we know are not just massive in terms of to our combined GDP as a continent, but also growing at a compared to us, what will lift the opportunity for industrializing our continent. So I'm very excited. Thank you.
Thanks so much for that. We look forward to having IDC on board, and we can't wait to work with the BRICS Business Council. I spoke about load shedding, and I'm still glad we're on. So to step it up into areas that are not good, are important, and I'd like to start with energy. Who's currently expanding across the continent in different around tanks. So let's have a conversation. How do we keep the lights on to make sure that businesses such no pressure, no pressure. No pressure, no pressure.
Good afternoon to everyone. And thanks again to Champions. I think the great work that you're doing, Doc, and the team, and obviously the AfCFTA Hub. To us, I think as Petro is saying, we have taken a view that we need to probably utilize the skills that we have developed over the last 30 to 35 years, especially in handling the African continent in terms of part of South Africa, our exploration activities that we've done there over the years, and we've taken a view that we look to other countries for support, but probably out of necessity as well, because we've run out of gas down in our blocks that we have in our country, and probably looking into West Africa is probably not a bad opportunity. We did that. We have an asset, as Petro is saying, in Ghana. That asset is performing very well. That asset is performing very well in terms of the asset that we have in Ghana. And I think based on the performance of that asset over the last 5 years, we think it's a great opportunity for us to invest in our Western African region and use the skill sets that we have, but some of the national oil companies. But how do we do that? I think that, we must do that through SMME partnerships, because it doesn't to get into a country, not to develop some of the SMMEs. We see advantages that much easier and quicker for us to trade, amongst other people, at least the financial muscle, to be able to invest in storage capacity. We are able to bring areas around the world and be able to then offer the price to the SMMEs in that country so that they can trade. And I think to us that we think that's a strategy that would work. We are testing it, and we think indeed that will assist us. That will ensure growth, I think, for us as Petro SA, but also supported by the hub. We are really excited that this hub itself would probably strategy and ensure that some of those markets and faster. And I think the way, also I think you asked the question, how do we keep the South African lights going in terms of gas? I think if we do find gas into some of these African countries, obviously it will assist us to be able to bring it and to support our power generation in South Africa and our country. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I hope there are SMEs in the room who are listening and who are thinking about opportunities that are going to be entering their doors from Petro SA. Another important sector, though, that I really want to speak about is we can produce goods, but we have to move them. And so the transport sector becomes a player in this connectivity. I'd like to invite from the cross transport to speak a bit about what's being done in that space. You know, how of goods, how do we ensure that SMEs, businesses, governments, there's harmonization.
Thanks, Sophie. Okay. Can you hear me? Okay. Bon dia, and good morning, good afternoon. As I was sitting down here, the two things that I've been reflecting on is some of the statistics that are coming out of the continent for where we're going to, where the continent is going. And what I find fascinating is the fact that by 100 on the continent, we are going to, by 2100, 1 in every 3 citizens on the globe. Currently, the average age on the continent is 19. So the question is, how are all of these people moving across the continent? How are we communicating? How are we ensuring the ease of movement between people on the continent? And also, I am a board member. There are a couple of initiatives that we've been looking at. And of course, because us Africans have mastered the art of talking about challenges, we know what the challenges are. And talking about what the challenges are, we're now starting to talk about what the solutions are. And have come up with certain, the cross-easy system of permits. Or people that are going to be into the next country across our border, and also the people that are moving across our borders. Because we've got a number of challenges, road infrastructure that is of the goods that move on our roads. The second one being the lack of harmonization around regulation. But what this tool is now allowing us to do is to have a seamless and harmonized and an integrated system which allows for the movement of people from across. And so being implemented also in the DRC, the piloting. The DRC has also agreed to pilot this. Because when you look at how much of goods move from Durban, it ultimately ends up in the DRC. If you look at the goods that is moving out of the DRC, going elsewhere, it ultimately means that on the continent, origin at least, that our permit systems speak to each other and there's harmonization. And the way in which price also has got to be different rates in different countries. Unless and until we as a continent agree what those tariffs are going to look like and take care of those tariff barriers that are making trade difficult for us, we're not going to go too far. The interesting thing for us also about the hub is that the hub is going to be giving us a sense of what the country profiles look like. The state of the infrastructure, for example, in Tanzania, the Strait of in Togo, health systems, education, etc. But the big thing that is helping into the fourth industrial revolution is obviously technology. So we've embraced technology, and technology is the only one, the quickest way of getting us into that next phase. So the Cross-Easy system, including other systems that are going to work on a plug-and-play basis. The time for, oh yeah, we're still system and it's going to take us 16 years past for us. Looking at systems that are going to allow plug-and-play. And the biggest for us is that it's not about competition, it's about collaboration. Working on collaborating with countries in the region to ensure that there's a smooth passage of people and smooth and ease for goods as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
We are moving. So if you can indulge me in areas I'm going to touch. So, and this is where I'm bringing Mike Sarame, external head for, corporate external head for Vodacom. And following him, you asked, how do we pay for it? I'm going to then ask Isaac Kamatu from EcoBank to come in. But I really hope you don't leave before you hear from Abena, because you have to hear from an SMME operating in the space and the opportunities and the challenges that exist. So if you can indulge us for a bit, I'm going to ask Mike to. Oh, you've got a mic.
Thank you very much. The size and scale of opportunity presented by AfCFTA, it's huge.
Yeah.
It's quite huge, and it calls on all of us. It calls on all of us to collaborate and cooperate. Yes, we as Vodacom, we connect over 183 million Africans. Our footprint, countries in the continent, 183, 70 million are through to refer to as M-Pesa. So it is quite a significant, those are quite significant numbers, but obviously with us and other fintech players, banks, and other MNOs, we can do much more. And in actual fact, I think our niche would be bringing to the whole conversation. The barriers were well articulated in terms of roads, ports, and all that. Obviously, digital would be a game changer in this conversation. So the most important for us would be the area of policy and regulatory harmonization. We are finding it difficult to inspire both regulators and policymakers to inspire both regulators and policymakers to think global, to think regional, to think continental. So I think it is important that in this conversation, we can be able to encourage those regulators and policymakers to not think exclusively, because other conversations we cannot be able to take them anywhere. At a level through our MFS, we can say there is a significant amount of numbers in dollar terms that are moving in between. And it is those capabilities that we can build on. It is those capabilities that we can scale to realize the objectives of the hub. So as Vodacom, we are excited to be around the table. As Vodacom, we are excited to work with others, both banks and MNOs, who are playing in mobile financial services. We have brought quite a in terms of your SMMEs, in terms of mobile money access to communities that were never banked, that never had access to banks and stuff. So as Vodacom, we are really looking forward to taking up our position around the table and see how we can actually bring value using our own capabilities and of mobile money inclusion in the continent. Thank you. Thank you.
I'm getting super excited about the action, the plan that's coming out of this room, because I know when we're back here, we're going to be having a different conversation. Isaac, we asked earlier on, how do you pay for it? Perhaps come conversation about with us.
Let me try to use mine. Good afternoon, everyone. As Sophie has mentioned, so my name is Isaac Kamuta. I have the privilege of running the payment business bank group. And I find this very interesting, and I think I also like the practicality of it. And I think what I'm going to say here, we'll try to make it as practical and as real as it can get. EcoBank was started in 1985 by a group of entrepreneurs that believed in the Pan-African dream. And they envisioned a time where Africans will need to be able to trade with one another. And they imagined that when that time comes, they will need a Pan-African financial institution that is present across Africa. And today, as we speak, the bank has got a physical presence in 33 African countries. It's very important when we start talking about doing business within the African context. So when you see what which is I think the digital part of it, but at the end of the day, the digital also needs the physical for things to be able to move. If you are an entrepreneur in one country, for example, in Rwanda, you want to be able to trade with somebody who is sitting in Ghana, then physical presence is very, very critical for you to be discovered. And so while the trade hub will provide the digital connectivity, but I think what we are doing as EcoBank is saying, with our 33 African countries, we have a direct conversation in your office, in Rwanda, and be able to link you with a buyer or a supplier in Ghana, where you can also be able to have then connect the two of you to be able to do business. Now, if we know you in Rwanda, in person, and the person you are dealing with in Ghana also as well, you go to your factory and to confirm that you actually exist, be able to see the goods that you are producing. And so for us, we doing to bring this home. We have created a digital hub. We are hoping to connect to this, where we are able to enroll all this, the SMEs or small and medium enterprises in each of our countries. And this digital portal where we can be able to bring them on board. They can be able to register their products. And then we also have a plus, and then you're able to discover one another. Again, working in very close partnership with the Afro Champions, which will expand who are today our customers in Africa, and then we can be able to offer payment, which I think is the easy part. Today, across all those 33 countries that I think that in other in the afternoon is getting them discovered, connecting, and being able to have people that actually can be able to vouch the authenticity of one company. And that's where the meets the payments angle for it. I think we can then become very practical. And when you now have the FDB and the rest of other people coming into finance, it becomes practical. At least, discovery in one location and the other. So we're hoping that as EcoBank, that's our small able to play. And maybe when we meet here next time, we'll be able to show actually tangible evidence of companies that we have been able to link together. And once they discover one another, we're able to then to finance us. Thank you.
So I'm pretty excited about the next speaker. As an entrepreneur myself, I like platforms where entrepreneurs are given space to speak. This morning I was reading on Ghana, and I hit the line, and Africa clothed by Africans. And I immediately knew today I had I couldn't wear Ghana, but I knew I could wear Senegal. But thinking, what impact can we each make if one day a week, maybe every Friday, I worked on the World Cup long ago, and we launched Friday. We can have like an Africa Friday, where each of us wear something by an African designer. Can you imagine the impact we would make to the lives of those entrepreneurs?
Absolutely.
Spend our money right, it will really happen. And the real impact, it's at the bottom line, money. But show me talk. So I would really like the inspiration, some of the issues that are important for an entrepreneur like yourself to work. I mean, you've seen the FCT Hub, you've probably interacted with it a little bit, and hearing what everybody else has to say on the table, what are you most excited about?
Thank you. I think what the app is do, entered by the panel, that he would sit in a panel with powerhouses like this. So the house is in the play for businesses to do what is at the heart of what we try to do always. Currently, so first, let me not miss the opportunity of talking about Ghana, because no small business must miss the opportunity to market. At Ghana, we are using the business of fashion to do three things. One, we want to use it to celebrate and promote African excellence, because often when Africa comes up, it's not excellence that comes to people's mind. Use to change that. The second thing, African entrepreneurs and inspiring the next generation of African entrepreneurs, because we have an enterprise that will fix Africa. Enterprise, not foreign aid, not politics, but enterprise. So we want to use our business, our conduct as a business, our growth as a business to inspire the next generation of African entrepreneurs. So that when tomorrow the next child is here, scale that they can build. I often ask myself, what if Google was an African company? If Uber was started in South Africa, what would be the impact of building businesses in Africa? But we're also very creating opportunities for women. So when it comes to the way we employ, when it comes to the partnerships that we forge, we are very deliberate about ensuring that women are at the heart of it. mainly because we realize that when their children, which is the next generation, whether they are boys or girls, are also impacted. We are at the point in business, been in business, this year is our 10th year, and so we are at the point where we are aggressively pursuing foreign markets. Thank you, because it can be tough. And so we are interested in clothing Africa, like you mentioned. We're also interested in ensuring that people who are interested in identifying and expressing the African identity on this planet, what it tends to look like today is that someone would, for example, travel to Ghana, see our product, interested in making a purchase, maybe buys one of our Africa, their friends want the product, and we have to send products from Ghana here, and it can be a very expensive and tiresome journey. Sometimes it also means that we are traveling for various fairs and exhibitions in the markets that we are interested in, paying for very expensive flights, and the issue of visas can be interesting. 3 weeks ago, and I was given a visa that allows me to stay for 3 months, but 10 days at a time. So it meant that one had to do some very clever thinking and be here 10 days, step out and come back again. And for me, what's exciting about the AfCFTA Hub, the possibilities that exist. So for an entrepreneur like myself, the things that are important to me are that, one, I can showcase my products digitally, I can find buyers, I can make payments, I can find, for example, which investors are interested in the type of business that I do, what kind of investments have they made in the space, the businesses they've invested in, are they doing well? So I want to be able to vet all the stakeholders I'm doing business with. And I've interacted with the AfCFTA Hub app and everything that it offers, the quality. I think what is lacking would be the marketing and enrollment. So how is it that entrepreneurs on the continent do not know enough about AfCFTA, do not know about what the hub offers? And I think that as we build AfCFTA, the thing that tariff challenge is a negative belief that we have in ourselves as Africans. And that, I think that it has to be addressed with serious. I remember during when I was at its peak in Ghana, any Ghanaian here, if I say fellow Ghanaians, will be reminded about the times when our president would come into our homes through digital means and speak to us. It sounded like he was speaking from right in his, I think it was going on in COVID. And I think that if something as huge after it, that it should be the thing that we use very constantly across the continent, so that we have enrollment and it addresses the issue of thing even going to happen. Because the first thing that comes to people's minds when we talk about AfCFTA is it not one of those talk shops that's happening? And that has to be addressed. We cannot spend all of this time and effort, especially when we are trying to do something so important and not have enrollment on the continent. The other thing, so I stand here, of course, representing small business, and that phrase in itself is interesting. It was Mbakwayo, a proud son of South Africa, who has a talk, and the title is The Big Lie of Small Business, because there's nothing small about small people are employed by small businesses. And in his talk, Lucy does one amazing thing, which is he talks about the South, and he talks about it so well. I don't think I'm pronouncing it well. Quarter. The quarter, yes, the bread that is packed with all things good. And by the time he's done talking about it, it doesn't make any sense that I, as a do not know about the to be an export product. And he delivered the message so well that the next time I'm in South Africa, water is something that I have. But it buttress the point that there's nothing. Businesses are started by small businesses, and every business is evidence of the fact that small business is big business. The final thing I would like to say is that AfCFTA wants to take 100 million people out of poverty. And sometimes when we have these types of conversations, the meaning is lost because it's not brought down to our everyday lives. And so I want to end with the thought of what's the cost, what's the real cost of poverty. And I'll tell the story of mine. It's Nanayao, and Nanayao worked with my mom for years. My mom is a baker, and then had moved on. During COVID, my mom calls me and says, you know, Nanayao is looking for work. And this guy had been so diligent and so loyal that we needed to bring him on the team. He joins us at work, and he does excellent work. About 2 weeks ago, Nanayao, and I'm wondering what has happened. But it turns out that his son is dead. And Nanayao is only in his 20s, and he's lost his son. And what had happened was he had sent his son to live with his mother in the village. And unfortunately, the little child goes to school, has a tummy ache, is sent home. On Thursday, it looks like he's doing fine. Thursday at night, tummy ache is back, very serious. Grandmother lives in a village that doesn't. They can find someone, put the child in a car, and send them for health care. And by the time they find someone with in Ghana we call it a boboya, a cat, who can transport the little child to the hospital. Before they get to the hospital, he's dead. And that's the real cost of poverty, it's death. And so if we are here talking about AfCFTA, it's not a fanciful thing up there in the sky. This is a solution that can take people out of poverty, which is that. And I think, and I think that it's important that every player, and we are all involved, we all have to ensure that it becomes a reality and not just another talk show. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think we have about hit the end of our round, but I wanted to thank each and every one of our partners today, plus the for joining us as well. Thanks so much. And from a selfish point of view, as I'm wearing my Afro Champions hat today, as the Director of Partnerships, I can't wait to knock on every door. Because like I said, selfishly, when I started this conversation, next year, I'd rather have it that it's somebody else having this conversation, standing here and representing all our organizations and the work that we're doing and not what we're individually doing. So I'm so grateful that not only do you come today to the table, not only did you come here today, but you came with deep thinking around what partnership takes, what collaboration is going to take, what is it that you're going to bring to the table to ensure that we're just not having a talk shop. And on the plug and play, each entrepreneur is always saying, my name is Sophie Masipa. I'm Mungana, Climate Impact Communications business on the continent. Yeah. And I'm a champion. So I think Dr. get off. But yes, I look forward to the next couple of months of engagement with all our stakeholders. Thanks so much.
Thank you. No, I just wanted to respond to one thing. Also to thank everybody. Of course, I'm not in trade, I'm a medical doctor, but I'm very passionate about what Abuna said, which is that it's really about lives. It's not enough to write prescriptions every day and know that people are coming to you with preventable problems that could be solved. Basic things. Access that. So, but the takes for an Aspen in South Africa to have to go through 55 markets to register its products and go through all of these regulators is what we're really trying to solve. So my response to some of the points, like what Isaac said, you know, first of all, this is a champion product. So I want to make sure it does that. Afro Champions is just looking for the champions and bringing them together, but make them visible. It's what you are already. Now, we're not trying to make an AFDB. AFDB is Petro SA. These are champions on the continent. We're bringing them together through tools that can make them visible. And so by the technical assistance we provide in NEPA, the AfCFTA Secretariat, among others, we are able to understand the dynamics of play. And I call it the 4D, right? It's what is happening at the intergovernmental level, what is happening at the governmental level, what is happening at the private sector level, which is really civil society framing, also interdirectional, which is where resources are flowing into, and more importantly also interdisciplinary, because there's some things happening in academia, there's things happening in, you know, so all of these things that you just brought together. And I think we just sort of have a helicopter view working in-house in all of these institutions to see how we don't reinvent wheels, okay? So we're just facilitating. So AfCFTA is owned by all the co-in it. We're learning as we're going. Ghana launched its version of the AfCFTA. It's going to launch version of the AfCFTA in 2 weeks. Kenya is about to launch its the AfCFTA. All of these things are customized based on their own priorities and how they're able to leverage the hub to also address their own domestic stuff. It's really, really important. And then when it comes to, when Isaac mentioned that our fiscal presence, of course, fiscal presence is very important, and we can't do anything without fiscal presence. However, you're still going to need to meet a regulator. You're still going to need to, that Ugandan company still would need to go and talk to a regulator. That's the mandate of your core job. It's going to be able to do some exploration. It's out of the continent. Being able to have an ecosystem where they can also plug in and be able to find services, because AfCFTA is not just about goods, it's also about services. It's also about standards. It's also about so many other things. And it's a combination of these things that we believe is going to make this work. And ultimately, everybody has to feel ownership of it. Most importantly, the SMEs. So I want to thank you all for making time to spend these precious moments with us, and look forward to next year or the next session where we're not going to be talking about what we should be doing as Africans, but what we have done. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
No,
Thank you. Thank you. Well done. Well done. That was very nice. Well done.